stay informed and ignore the world at the same time.
Totally. Isn't that a funny thing? A funny balance.
Uh,
I hit go live. I'll do a little intro of you.
Here we go. Right on.
As soon as they say we're really live. We're live. Facebook, hi. Come on in and have a seat with us. We're here waiting for you. Not that you're late, you're perfectly on time. So today, again, it's high noon. Yeah, and we have the 420 comic every week at noon, Tuesdays. He's so nice to do this. He does a ton of research just so you can know things you didn't know before from TV and movies. He's going to a lot of trouble, and so we want to support him back. He is the 420 comic. He has merchandise on Instagram at CaliChronicsComic.com, Cali Chronics Comic. CALI Chronics, CHRONIX Comics, COMIC. And you gotta buy his new book that's out. He just published it and it's raring to go. You gotta get a copy. Give them out to other people. People are like need a distraction right now. You know, even if you're driving, you need a distraction. Am I kidding? This world is crazy right now. We need distractions everywhere, even behind the wheel. Who's going to tell us we can't? Anyway, welcome to Comic Spot. And this was created so this Army veteran can vet out veterans of comedy. And Jeffrey Peterson is a veteran of comedy. Yeah, there's only two people that have actually been on stage with Cheech and Chong at the same time. He's one of them. Yeah. He's a 420 comic. He's been that for 18 years, probably going on to 19 by now. He's done comedy. He's gone around the country. Lord Almighty, we aren't even here to talk about his comedy today. He's so nice and humble. He's here to talk about sketch comedy shows. So let's hear what our favorite person that does research, the 420 comic, Jeffrey Peterson, has to say today. Welcome, Jeffrey Peterson. Woo! Hi, Jeffrey.
Hey, can you hear me? The volume kind of dropped down. I don't know what happened, but the volume went from great to I can barely hear you.
I'm at 100%.
Wild. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Mine's at 100%. Let me see what's going on here with mine. Yeah, mine's at 100% too, and but I can barely hear you, so I don't know what happened. But
why don't you start talking, and I'll fiddle around with things.
Well, I'll see if I can. Yeah, I'll just make sure if I can listen to you. Why don't you start talking, and I'll grab my headphones. That'll probably be the best bet.
That sounds good. I'll start talking. Right. Every single week, this guy comes on in, and he's researched so much for you guys. Oh my gosh. He's done research into the files of history of shows that came on the air and only lasted a season or 3. He's done research on people who were comedians who became famous through shows and sitcoms. And today, every week he does a ton of research just to come on here and talk about things you might not otherwise know. And today, Jeffrey Peterson, the 420 comic, is going to be talking about sketch comedy shows. And that's a whole category unto itself. And he has history details for us as usual. He goes down rabbit holes. You know, he loves digging. He likes to get to the truth. So here he is. Let's welcome him back. Now, can you hear me better now?
Oh, much better. Can you hear me?
Oh, much better. Wow.
All right. Well, we will get into this. Great to be back here as always at high noon. I love being your only featured show besides your own interviews, but here we are. Yeah, so much fun to always talk about TV, and whatever subject I talk about, it won't always be the same. But lately I've been talking about my love of TV, and that's always fun. comedy is just kind of come to a standstill, so we got to be creative. I am super happy to announce brand new, hot off the presses. It's my latest comic book, Jaw Healing Chronicles, folks. Very exciting.
Explain what jaw healing means, because I'm denser than a doorknob.
Well, this is my buddy CJ, who's on the cover, has a church in California and in Arizona called the Jaw Healing Church, and they're a cannabis themed church, and they use cannabis as a sacrament, and they teach the benefits of cannabis. So I've known him for many years, and I just thought, wow, how neat it would be to create him as a comic book character.
Wonderful.
So the comic book is old school. It's got that kind of newsprint that we remember from the 70s and 80s, and it's comedic. So it's got like a Calvin and Hobbes vibe. It's got a superhero vibe, and it's also got almost like a Prince Valiant vibe because it goes medieval.
Wow.
So it goes everywhere. Yeah. Plus, there's just great advertisements from businesses that are just very important, and super excited. My buddy Chris Chiari's movie Public Enemy #1. So
wow,
this is my brand new comic book, folks. And just to correct you, I hate to correct you, but
please
it gets
do.
confusing. It's Cali, CALI, chronic, just like chronic, like like a headache. CHRONIC, and then comics, COMIX.
Thank you. Sorry.
Comics with an X is the way they used to spell it in the 70s and the 60s. It's a kind of it's for independent or underground comic books.
Okay,
The
perfect.
X. So that's why it's Cali Chronic Comics. We're on Instagram and Facebook. You can order these, or you could just hit Linda up, and because she's a sponsor. So I'm a sponsor for her show, so you can get these through her.
Absolutely.
And of course, my other one that just came out in March, The Achievers. So those are exciting new news. And what I want to talk about this week is sketch comedy shows. And we all know what those are. Those have been around forever. I mean, going way back to the Red Skeleton show and Jackie Gleason's live show, just all kinds of shows that had sketches that were comedic, and they kind of came from variety shows, because remember in the 60s, 50s, 70s, so much shows were variety shows. They had music and a juggler and the clown and like whatever they could throw at you,
Yes.
So as they developed into really good sketch comedy shows, man, we got some good ones. So I'm going to name off some of my favorites. And as always, there's probably a long list that I'll be missing on this list, because this is just my personal list. So,
okay.
But I can tell you that the ones I'm going to name first, most people probably never heard of, and they're really great. So some they have. For example, Key and Peele, that was a big show. That was a great on Comedy Central. That was a great sketch comedy show. There's one from MTV days called The State that spawned a lot of famous people. If you haven't heard of these, check them out. Upright Citizens Brigade. These were all those people became famous. Amy Poehler probably being the most famous. There was John Leguizamo, the great actor, had a show on Fox called House of Buggin'. It was kind of a Latino sketch comedy show, very funny. Also on Fox, there was a show called The Edge that had the great Rick Overton. Rick Overton, if you don't know who he is, he's just one of our best comedians and actors in the comedy world. And Jennifer Aniston was on this show. Julie Brown, Wayne Knight, Newman from Seinfeld. So many great people. So it's called The Edge. You may find it on YouTube. I don't know. I was just watching today the Martin Short show, which is a very funny one. It was a show that was part sitcom, part sketch comedy show, because Martin Short parodied himself playing a host of a late night talk show type thing. And then he ended up actually being a late night talk show host on his own show. But this was before that in 1994. And it was very funny. He'd have big stars on there, Steve Martin and the cast members from SCTV, Eugene Levy and Andrea Martin and people like that. Jan Hooks, the late great Jan Hooks, Saturday Night Live. She was his wife on the show. And so that was a great one. And then speaking of SCTV, another great show was the Dave Thomas show. Hardly anybody saw that. Dave Thomas, if you don't know who he is, you've seen him in a ton of movies and went, oh, I didn't know that guy. It was Dave Thomas.
Not the guy from Wendy's.
Not the guy from Wendy's. The Canadian guy from SCTV, from the Bob and Doug McKenzie, those two guys. So he had a great sketch comedy show. He's one of the best impressionists around. He does Michael Caine like nobody. And on his show, he would have Dan Aykroyd and other great big stars. So if you can find that, that's a good one. Roseanne had a sketch comedy show that people forgot. That was on Fox. It was called Saturday Night Special. And that had her and some other funny people. Jennifer Coolidge, Stifler's mom from American Pie. She was on there, and she had a great cast of funny people. But of course she was the star. So, and I do like Roseanne. So
I had never heard of that. So a lot of these I've never heard of. Thank you for looking them up.
Well, I don't even look them up. They're just in here.
Wow.
They're not, I don't even look them up. I don't even need to do that. They're all up in here. The research I do is just remembering.
Wow.
That's all I do. Yeah. So, there's that was a show called Saturday Night Special. So look that up, kids. Dana Carvey had a show on ABC that lasted about 6 episodes, and it is just too dangerous for TV. It's so dangerous. There's a Netflix documentary that you could watch about it. And it had Steve Carell and a couple other people I won't name because I think they're bad. But Dana Carvey was so funny in this, and it was we know Dana Carvey is very good at sketches, so if you get a chance, you could still find the Dana Carvey show places. But the running gag with that show was he kept getting sponsors to sponsor the show, big name corporations like Taco Bell and Mountain Dew, and then he'd make fun of them in the show. By the end of the week of each show, they would be so mad. They'd say, "We're dropping out. Taco Bell is out." And so he'd have to get a new sponsor every week. And he made fun of that every week.
And this was for real.
This was 100% for real. He'd be like, the Mountain Dew presents the Dana Carvey show. And then he'd make fun of Mountain Dew and say that it looks like pee. He'd be like, what does that look like to you? And then they'd go, that's it. We're not working with it. So by the end of the show, his sponsor was a Chinese restaurant in like Brooklyn. There's like Chang's Chinese Food presents the Dana Carvey show. It was just, so the documentary's funny and the show's even funnier. So you got to see that. Of course, even though this is, probably worthy of being in my top forever, 10. I mentioned it before, but it's just it almost goes in its own category. Of course, the Richard Pryor show, one of the
Wow.
greatest shows that was too dangerous for TV. That's a sketch comedy show. If you haven't seen it, their sketches are so dangerous. Incendiary. It's like your TV is going to catch on fire. So Richard Pryor just belongs in his own category. So that's that's his sketch comedy show. Of course, Chappelle's show was really great. I love Chappelle's show. I don't know if that's still Dave Chappelle now. I think, I'm a truther, so I'm not sure that's the same Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
But the Chappelle's show before he went to Africa and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. What an amazing show. It's really great. It almost doesn't belong on my top 10 too, because it falls in that thing for me that it's too giant. Another giant one that it's not in my personal top 10 too, because it's also in its own class. The Carol Burnett show.
Yeah, I was waiting.
I mean, come on. Mrs. Wiggins. I mean, Carol Burnett show is it's just it redefined sketch comedy, So you can't really, and like I said, these would be in a whole nother category, like a Hall of Fame almost. So, and the ones I love that are my top 10 are just my personal, flavors that I just love. So getting to those, I would say Mad TV.
Wow, yeah.
Which was the show I was lucky enough to work on. I got to work behind the scenes on Mad TV, and I got to meet wonderful people like Mo Collins and become friends with Mo Collins. But their show, with Michael McDonald and Bobby Lee and Will Sasso, just all the people who've come through there, and Artie Lang, just what a just an amazing group of people, and I'm leaving. Key and Peele came from there. I mean, just so many people came from Mad TV. It was a very good show. It had a lot of twists and turns because they changed the cast a lot, like they do in sketch comedy a lot. But and then they tried to revive it recently with some Amir K and some very funny people, but it didn't jibe with people the same way. So, and that happens. But so anyways, Mad TV, as great as it is, it just, I didn't put it on my top 10, but here goes and then one more that fits in my category for, it's just too big to not, is Tracy Ullman. Tracy Ullman is probably one of my favorite actresses. The Tracy Ullman show, if you recall, spawned The Simpsons, and she is just an amazing sketch, comedy actress, And
Absolutely.
Do you like Tracy Ullman? Do you know Tracy Ullman's work?
Yes.
Oh, she's just astounding. She can play men, women, anything. She can. And then, of course, her show on HBO, Tracy Takes On, where she just took a different subject and then did sketches on those every show. Really great shows. So you got to love Tracy Ullman.
What about Saturday Night Live? Does that categorize in there at all?
I think it might be on my list coming up. So
okay.
So here's
my
the
bad.
big. That's okay. So we're getting down to those. So those are some just shows that I think are really great, and obviously there's some big name shows in there that you should have seen. If you didn't see, definitely see those shows because they're so famous. But
yes,
here I go. I'm going to roll down my top 10 here, and it is high noon, so I got to medicate here.
Go ahead. I'm going to say something. If you haven't seen Richard Pryor anything, or Red Fox anything, or Carol Burnett anything, or Tracy Ullman anything, oh heck, Gildan Radner's skits. Can we talk? You got to look them up. You got to look them up. That's history of comedy there.
And that's kind of what I try to do with these shows is bring that to people instead of just talking about, dropping jokes and stuff. I try to do a little teachable moment here. Flip Wilson was one of my favorites when I was a kid. His sketch shows were very funny. Geraldine and all those were just hilarious.
And the devil made me do it.
Yeah. So I really loved that, all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. You know, there's other shows like Laugh-In and stuff like that are more variety shows. I think they are
Yeah.
less sketch. But so one of the great things about here we go. These are my top 10 of my personal favorites. So number 10 was on HBO, and it featured Bob and Dave, which is Bob Odenkirk and David Cross. I don't know if you've ever seen Mr. Show. Mr. Show is great. It was on many, many seasons and very avant-garde, has a great ensemble cast and just, you know, stuff that you're just, you know, wincing almost like, oh my God, that is just so out there, you know. So you got to see Mr. Show, groundbreaking. Bob Odenkirk, David Cross, if you've not seen it. And then in number 9 is a show that it doesn't really necessarily stand the test of time, but it's got some amazing elements to it that have to be rewarded and recognized. It was a West Coast version of Saturday Night Live.
Huh.
Do you know what that was?
Let's see. Chelsea Handler. I'm going crazy here.
Oh no, this was back in 1980. 1980. Now Saturday Night Live came out in 1975. This came out 5 years later.
I forgot.
Well, Saturday Night Live was live from New York. It's Saturday Night Live. So this was from Los Angeles. It's Fridays.
Wow. Who did that one? Who hosted
Well, that was on ABC. Huge famous people hosted it. They had tons of great musical guests, sometimes much bigger names than Saturday Night Live could get, and much more fresh, newer 80s names. The cast included Larry David.
What?
He's a nobody, right?
Yeah.
And
He's
Michael
on the edge
Richards.
of poverty, I hear.
Right. Michael Richards, aka Kramer. He used to have a big name for himself. Plus just another, you know, group of cast members, Melanie Chardoff and Mark Blankfield, people you don't remember, but tons of great cast members. Daryl Ickes, my favorite guy in the show. He was the black guy in the show. He did a really great sketch that is completely memorable to me and one that holds the test of time. He played a Rastafarian chef named Nat E. Dread, and whatever he would cook, he would stuff weed in it and then like a fish, and he'd go, what are we going to do? Are we going to bake it? No. Are we going to boil it? No. Are we going to sizzle it? No. We're going to smoke it. And then he would smoke like whatever he was cooking. And it was just, so you can find those on right now on Tubi. Tubi. Look up Tubi. That's a great channel. Fridays. It's groundbreaking. Michael Richards is crazy. Larry David. So that one's number 9. Number 8, if you don't have Netflix, get Netflix just for this show alone. If you've never seen this, it really took me a long time to see this show. And if you haven't seen it, of all people, you need to see it and get hooked. It's called Portlandia.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, you've seen it?
Yes, I have. I'm a fan of that show.
You've seen it? Yeah.
I've made it through. I'm a stunt. That and Grimm both filmed in Portland, my hometown.
Oh, but Carrie Brownstein and Fred Armstead are just, wow, what a remarkable show over 8 seasons that never got boring. Their style is just their own. It's so Portland, it's not even funny. I've told people that are from Portland, if you've never seen it, and then they see it and go, oh my God, how did they nail it so much? Because they'll even have everything's Northwest 158th Street by Southwest. Everything's like, what the hell? Who made this city? So that's a big part of it. So that is one of my all-time favorite shows. Like a lot of shows, I'm glad I didn't watch it when it came out because then I binged watched it, and that was right before I met you because I watched it like for a whole month before I came out to the Portland Comedy Festival last year.
Wow.
So
I used to go downtown Portland right by Harvey's. They have the Oregon Duck store, and they would always be filming Portlandia out there out on the street. You could just walk by and see the cast and crew.
yeah, that's great, and they seem to have a great connection with the city, but they certainly made fun of the stereotypes that
Good.
are in and around Portland perfectly.
Good. Perfect.
Not the kind that are there now, but the kind that used to be.
Yeah.
So anyhow, my next favorite was on Comedy Central, another show I didn't watch, but I'm glad I did now, and I got hooked, way hooked, and that is the Kroll Show. Nick Kroll is one of the best stand-up comics, but he's also his sketch comedy is. If you've ever seen the TV show The League, he's from The League. Nick Kroll is a pretty famous guy, but his sketch show is just out of this world. He plays men and women and all kinds of characters. So if you haven't seen the Kroll Show on Comedy Central, treat yourself. It's so, and of course he's got famous friends that help him be funny too. So and now number 6 in my list here, HBO in 1988 had a huge show that I just went crazy for as a kid. I'm crushing your head. I am crushing your head.
All of a sudden, the microphone is scratchy when you talk. Something just happened.
Something just happened. Okay, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, try saying something real fast.
Something real fast.
Perfect. It fits.
Okay, so Kids in the Hall was a huge show. Remember that? I'm crushing your head, and where's my pen? My pen, my pen. So many memorable sketches. Those guys were a Canadian powerhouse of comedy, huge force. Again, a show where 6 guys that played men, women, they played whatever. I wait a minute. I'd have to think. I think there's. I'm so terrible with numbers. I think it is 6.
There goes the microphone noise again.
Oh, it does. I hope my power's not going out, because if it is, I'll have to change so I can hear you. Can you hear me? Is it going out again?
It's horrible.
Okay, let me try this then. Here we go. Ready? Me now?
Try talking again.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Hello?
It's still very scratchy.
Still very scratchy. Wow, and I'm plugged in and everything.
Only when you talk, naturally.
Oh, that's great. Only when I talk. I can hear you just fine, so I'm scratchy.
Yeah.
It looks like, oh, that's weird. I don't know what's going on here.
It's the Russians. Blame it on the Russians. We always did in the 50s.
Well, I blame the communists. But anyways, here we go. Can you hear me? Or
It's very scratchy. It's very scratchy, but go ahead.
Yeah, yours is kind of scratchy too a little bit. So, Kids in the Hall, guys. If you haven't seen Kids in the Hall, one of the best shows ever for that. And then number five, Monty Python's Flying Circus. Were you a fan?
A big fan. I mean, I don't know all the details, but I would watch it and be amazed.
Oh yeah, it was Terry Gilliam's art. He did the animation, and but one of the greatest ensemble casts ever. These guys were really ahead of their time. Now some of the stuff is pretty, politically incorrect if you went and watched it again.
Yeah. Him and Benny Hill.
Him and Benny Hill. Benny Hill's another sort of sketch comedy, but he's so variety. I would, because he would sing songs out of the blue, and So let me keep moving so I don't lose everybody here. Number four on my list is the Ben Stiller Show, which was he had 2 shows. One was on MTV. I was the only one who watched that one. and that was Ben Stiller. It was a sketch comedy show as well, very funny. But then he had a show on Fox, and you could see that probably on uh, YouTube or somewhere. Probably find it. But have you ever seen the Ben Stiller comedy show?
I'm not really a fan. I'm a fan of his father.
Gotcha. So, but he had a great ensemble cast, weird people, Janine Garofalo, Andy Dick, and Bob Odenkirk, and he'd have guests on there. So that was a very interesting show, very funny show. The next show, number 3, also on Fox. What a groundbreaking sensation, really pop culture sensation in Living Color. And Living Color was just, come on, everybody watched that.
That was so good.
It was so good. It just blew us all away. I mean, and everybody had their favorite characters, either, Fire Marshal Bill, or for me, it was there was so many great characters. The uh, Funky Fingers Productions, that was Tommy Davidson and David Allen Greer would do that thing with like, bam, Funky Fingers Productions. They would always like, but there was so many, Homie the Clown, and there was just so many great sketches on there and their parodies and stuff. But it made Jim Carrey the star that he is, really.
Wow.
So, and Damon Wayans and all the Wayans brothers, Marlon and Snuff and Rome, Marlon and Damon. I mean, Marlon and Sean Wayans. So Kim Wayans, everybody on there, and of course, the Frenchie was a great character that Keenan Ivory Wayans used to do. So, of course, if you haven't seen In Living Color, yes. At one point, Chris Rock was going to buy it, and then it didn't work out.
Wow.
So, okay, so here we go. So I don't scratch everybody out. Number 2, I've just been inundating. Oh, how is my phone shutting down?
Hold on. I hope we don't lose him. He's on the number 2 on the list of sketch comedy shows. He counted down from 10, and he's up to number 2. And we'll just see if his technology is going to stay up or not. I'm guessing that Saturday Night Live and Carol Burnett are number 2 and number 1, or Richard Pryor. But I could be wrong. He may have already mentioned them, but they are in categories all to their own. So let me go see if he's sending me a message. Hold on. We'll find out where he's at. He's out. Probably means he's going to come back. I'm going to ask him who's number 2 and number 1. We'll see what he says. In the meantime, how are you enjoying this? He has a memory like an elephant. I thought he had to go and research all this stuff every time. Turns out the information is in his noggin. Can you believe that? I never had a clue that he had all this information in his head. I thought he was going and looking it all up. I've been thanking him for all his work. It turns out it's not any work at all. Nah, it's work to, drag it out and categorize it, number it for us, One of the things I find interesting about Saturday Night Live, which I'm sure is on the list, is that, as we talked about, I don't know where it is on the top 10 list that Jeffrey came up with, but what I would like to find out is how many stars have come out of Saturday Night Live. And because of Larry David, how much money have those stars made? And I wonder if Larry David signs them when they go off on their own, and if he gets residuals from what they make. That'd be kind of interesting to find out. Haven't heard back from Jeffrey yet, so he must have. I'll wait 5 more minutes. Here he's back. Yay. He probably plugged his phone back in just for us. Here he comes back. The 420 comic, Callie Chronic Comics on Facebook and Instagram. He's signing on his audio. He's in the dark.
I'm in the dark. Sorry, gang. You know what happened is my phone got so hot it couldn't take it.
I believe you. It happens all the time.
Yep. So what I'm doing is I have a banquet TV dinner behind it now. So talking about comedy. So I will get to my two real quick because this is a long show. But
Okay.
SCTV, gang, if you've never seen SCTV, Second City Comedy Television, that's John Candy, Martin Short, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, Catherine O'Hara, Rick Moranis, Dave Thomas, Joe Flaherty. These are like the funniest people. You've got to see SCTV. You can watch a bunch of them on YouTube. I've been watching a bunch of those. So these are all huge stars. Just the funniest sketches. They sometimes have, great musical guests too and stuff. But SCTV, you must see it.
That's like a master class if it comes from Second City, because they feed into Saturday Night Live.
They do. They most certainly do. And of course, we know Second City just spawns so many great people. But and that's kind of the master class. But the TV show, just check it out on YouTube. You'll be blown away because these are all famous people. You've seen them in a million movies and TV shows. But of course, the tippy top, the number one, Saturday Night Live. Come on.
I was hoping that would be number one. Of
course, it's had its ups and downs. It's been better. It's been worse. It's been great. It's been okay. But at its core, it's a really great invention. Lorne Michaels created. 1975, they started off with George Carlin hosting, so they knew how to make it work. Always had astounding musical guests. Some better than others, but just what an unbelievable, memorable show. Da Bears. So many. More cowbell. Jane, you ignorant slut. So many memorable catchphrases. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. When I was a kid, I was hooked on it. It was the thing I couldn't watch. The thing I was not supposed to watch. I knew it was on, but Steve Martin, when I saw him do King Tut, I was hooked. I was like, oh my God, he was a wild and crazy guy. And the Fest Trunk, but we are two wild and crazy guys. But all the way down the line, to Wayne's World, to the Adam Sandler songs, to Matt Foley, just Eddie Murphy and I'm Gumby, damn it, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. So many years. My favorite year is 1984.
Why is that?
Because of the cast, and it's a cast that very few people remember. But there's two really memorable casts I'll get to, folks, before I go. The 1984 one was astounding. Again, Martin Short was on it. Billy Crystal.
Whoa.
Christopher Guest, one of our favorites. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Elaine from Seinfeld. I mean, just Jim Belushi. So many great people were on that cast, and it was so different. And the sketches were just really the top notch. You talk about master class. That was the master class of Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
And of course, no offense to John Belushi, because Samurai was my favorite when I was a kid. And of course, I've mentioned on this, Garrett Morris from Saturday Night Live gave me my biggest break ever. He, as far as like he had me headline my first show at his club. So,
Wow.
Baseball been very, very good to him. So everything about Saturday Night Live, Lisa Lubner, of course, Gilda Radner, you mentioned, Rosanna Dana, all the Emily Latilla, Jane Curtin, just so many great people on Saturday Night Live. The Will Ferrell years, the
Good Times.
Phil Hartman. We can't forget Phil Hartman. What an amazing guy Phil Hartman was. So yeah, and I have my favorite sketches. Everyone has their favorite sketches of that. Jim Brewer was one of my favorites on there. The list goes on and on. And I'm missing people, of course, but yeah, Saturday Night Live.
I'd love to know. I'd love to have a whole episode from you on, all the people that started at Groundlings and Second City and got to Saturday Night Live, and how their career, where are they now? And how much
Yeah.
money have they made? And like, did Larry David sign them, and does he get residuals from the stuff they get because they launched out of SNL? I mean, that's a rabbit hole you could probably dig
Well,
into.
you know, there's a lot of funny stories behind SNL, like for the fact that Larry David used to write for SNL and then he got fired. You know, Ben Stiller used to write for SNL and he got fired. Billy Crystal tried out 5 times before they put him on. You know,
Man.
Michael McKean, you know, who's a huge actor that's from Laverne and Shirley and Spinal Tap and stuff. He didn't get on till the late 80s. And oh yeah, I forgot in the 1984 cast, of course, Harry Shearer, who's, you know, Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. So just endless. And then the next season, I should mention 1985 was groundbreaking. People don't remember this. Randy Quaid was on there. Randy Quaid was a cast member. He used to play Reagan. And then Robert Downey Jr. was a cast member of Saturday Night Live. You know,
I'm
Michael
a huge
Hall.
fan of Robert Downey Jr. Huge
Right.
fan.
And that was a very, you know, Joan Cusack. It was a very interesting season. So Saturday Night Live had a lot, you know, Gilbert Gottfried in 1980 was on the cast, you know. You know, people forget how big Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo were together. They were huge. And of course, Dana Carvey, John Lovitz, just endless. It goes on and on and on. And
And on.
yeah, so Saturday Night Live is one of those shows you could put on, and everyone has their favorite sketches. It's in my opinion, sometimes they've pushed the envelope too far at times. Sometimes I see them pushing an agenda I don't like, but for the most part, especially the older ones and the 80s ones, they're really just so funny. And sometimes they're just really, you know, groundbreaking. You know, I mean, it made so many careers, as we've said, David Spade and Adam Sandler and you know all those guys. They wouldn't even, you know, Rob Schneider. They wouldn't even be here without this, you know.
And all the amazing guest hosts that, you know,
look at Jimmy Fallon. He went from being a cast member to the host of the Tonight Show. I mean, who saw that coming?
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely. I have
Tracy Morgan, you know.
I have a friend in New York City that's a regular at my comic strip live open mic. And he got up one night and he had a set and he said that he writes for Saturday Night Live, and he applauded. And he said, well, I'm actually the guy that writes the cue cards.
Yeah.
And he is.
I've made it a point to, you know, if I work with a comedian that's been on Saturday Night Live as a cast member, it's extra exciting for me. That's for sure. Jeff Richards has become a friend over the years. Dean Edwards, you know, a few people that I've known and that have been cast members. And so that's always exciting. And, you know, Maria Villasenor and people, all these newer, younger comics and stuff that have just come out of there, Bobby Moynihan and all these people. So it just creates, it's something that creates so many, you know, careers, you know what I mean? And like I said, if you ever looked at the list of people that were cast members, it just would be astounding to us.
It would be. And like Michael Che and Colin Jost, the Weekend Update people just by themselves is a history lesson. How to deliver monologues in the news, you know, topical.
Right, and that's a tough thing. Norm Macdonald, you know, was controversial as a Dennis Miller, you know.
Kevin Nealon
was not probably, you know, he probably had the hardest time because people didn't really dig him. Brian Doyle Murray, you know, Bill Murray's brother was on that. That was an interesting time to be on that. And then, you know, the Jimmy Fallon and Tina Fey era, you know that. So that's not the most enviable part, is to be the news guy, the news person, you know.
No, but it's my favorite part of it's my favorite part of that whole show.
Oh yeah, but of course, you know, it was weird, like when Bill Murray went from the Joe Hollywood guy to the newscaster, then, because that didn't really work.
Yeah.
But nobody was better than, I'm Dan Aykroyd, and this is Saturday Night, like, you know, our top story tonight. Yeah,
I like all the people that they would choose every week specific person to say, and live from New York, it's Saturday night. Like
Yep.
to get to be able to be that person that gets to deliver that line, that's like being on a magazine cover to me.
It really is. It really is. It's TV history, and it has if you were going to make a documentary about the history of television, you would be remiss to not include Saturday Night Live. You would be just completely wrong, because it's just spawned so many great careers, and like we've said, so many astounding musical things. You know, this is the High Noon Show. Cypress Hill got banned from there, the band Cypress Hill, because they sparked up a joint, you know, because it's live TV. People have been in trouble for lip syncing, you know, things have happened on there. So there's been people have used cuss words, or, you know, so it's very unpredictable, you know. So but very, very funny show, had such a great career, you know. I mean, such a great history, I should say. And so those are my sketch shows, guys. I love sketches, sketch comedy, improvisation especially is fun. But you know, what a list. So thank you for listening.
I want to just say one sketch show that is just sketches, and it's a very short little show, but the Wayne Brady thing, that where they do sketch improv. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If that's truly in the moment.
Oh no, you're talking about Whose Line Is It Anyways?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's another show, like I've mentioned in the past here on my show, that a lot of shows come from English roots. That was an English TV show, and then Drew Carey adopted it. It used to be on Comedy Central a lot, the English version. But that is, I wouldn't call that a sketch show, but that is purely, if you recall, it started as kind of a game show.
Yeah.
But then it turned into them just acting for you. So wasn't it dumb that they kept points? It was like, I didn't understand who are you keeping points for? You're not giving money to charity or anything. They're just,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
If it really is not rehearsed, then it's brilliant. But if it's rehearsed, that kind of brings it down a notch.
Right.
But I still like watching it.
Right. And that inspired other shows like Wild and Out. Wild and Out is like an urban version of that. So, yeah, I mean, but I love sketch comedy shows that are, you know, long form, you know, thought out with they're just so I in my head I could you know, just go over so many memorable Saturday Night Live sketches as a kid, because you could just sit around a campfire and talk about the ones you liked and just laugh, you know. So
you could
for
hours.
For
no
hours.
Wonder
so
it's number one.
Yeah, and no wonder I've taken
Jeffrey
up over
Peterson,
half an
thank
hour.
you. No,
Thanks for
thank you
sticking
so
with me.
much for.
Yeah, and here's my
so
banquet.
much weekly.
There's my banquet TV dinner that I had to cool this down with, and now the phone's cool. So thank you for having me weekly. It's fun.
Absolutely.
And I'm not gonna say what I'm gonna do next week. I'll think of it. And
okay, perfect.
But really, folks, if you get a chance, even if you don't like me or my show, if you do watch Linda's stuff and you see this, support her. Definitely support all the comics that come and stuff like that. But enjoy these shows, man. Just check them out, because they're out there.
And go to Facebook or Instagram to Cali, CALI, Chronic, CHRONIC, Comics, COMIX.
You nailed it.
And Instagram, because that's Jeffrey Peterson, the 420 comic with merch to sell. Support it.
And I'll be by with some new comics for you, so you can give them out and stuff. And thank you so much for having me. We'll see you next Tuesday at high noon. Much.
Thank you for bringing by comic books for the veterans. I appreciate that so much. They love them.
Oh, well, I can't wait for them to see the new one then.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Talk to you next week.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Love you lots.
Love you too.
Didn't hit.